Hey, Rolling 20 fans, this is G, and I'm here to tell you today about a new sponsor for our show, Casey's Irish Pub. This is an honest-to-God Boston or Chicago-style Irish pub located in downtown Los Angeles. They serve cooked food, 11 kinds of beer, and 49 different Irish whiskeys from 3 different distilleries. What does that mean? That means if you're looking for a good drink during a Los Angeles convention, you don't have to go far. If you're headed to Los Angeles for E3, Kamikaze, Anime Expo, the Los Angeles Car Show, or one of the hundreds of events happening near the Staples Center, then a good meal and a glass of Guinness is just a short walk away. Jeremy, the loud guy who won't shut up when we do our own podcast, he actually ate there during the last Anime Expo, and he said this. Forgive me if I don't sound like the guy. I went to Casey's Pub looking for a place to bring people for a good night of food and found it when I was driving people on my way back to the Los Angeles Convention Center. We went back and I had the best steak pot pie in my life down there. My wife had a good whiskey to sip, and 8 of us had fun talking and eating in a place that looked like it belonged in a movie. Casey's just a couple of blocks from the Westin Bonaventure. That means it's close to one of Anime Expo's own shuttle stops. We're even hosting a photo shoot there during the 2014 Anime Expo. If you want more details on that, email us at mspfreight@yahoo.com. Hey, so do yourself a favor and don't stock up on bad beer and try to mix something sitting at the desk of your hotel room. Ride the elevator, get off at the Bonaventure, and walk to Casey's Irish Pub to get some drinks by their bartenders. Make some new memories and have some fun. We want to see you there.
Hello, everybody. It's Anthony, Beyond some Mission Star podcast with another edition of the Conover. With me tonight to explain his adventures at Otakon. Special guest, we have Henry.
Hi, everyone.
And also tonight with us to talk about Otakon as well, even though he didn't win, but had a good connection with him, is Brendan as well.
Hello.
And tonight I cannot talk today. And tonight, we are going to discuss all things that matter that happened at Otakon. And the ever-floating question of, did the gazebo survive this year? So, I guess we should start. So, Henry, what year is this for you for attending Otakon?
This is my 4th Otakon. I did have a break in the middle. I went one time in college, but this is my 2nd year consecutively. And I live in Philadelphia, which is 2 hours away from Baltimore. So I just make the drive down. It's not that big of a deal for me to do it.
Okay. Was there any expectations prior to coming to Otakon this year? Did you hear any ramblings of anything you might be getting excited for before you came?
Well, I really enjoy the rave, the dance.
Okay.
And I just love walking around doing photography. One of the things that I really wanted to do this year was attend at least one of the One Piece photo shoots. Last year I did 2, but this year my girlfriend was with me, and last year she wasn't. So I kind of had to give her a lot of attention and just kind of introduce her to the event because she's never been there before. So this was her first time, and it just kind of gave me like a fresh perspective on what a first-timer would actually look at, care about, and just kind of I just kind of was guiding her the whole time.
So was this whole first convention?
Yeah,
or
this was the
general?
first anime convention ever. And
Oh, wow.
I'm so glad it was Otakon because it's the biggest on the East Coast.
What kind of did you attend any panels?
I personally didn't, just because there wasn't time. I went to the anime music video contest and voted on it. Basically, it's a 2 hour long, what you can basically call a panel, but it's in the biggest auditorium ever with just a bunch of seats, and people line up an hour ahead of time just to get in. But it's not really necessary. I probably shouldn't say this because people are gonna listen
Yeah,
to me and not
for
actually
most
get in line. But
for most conventions, most anime conventions these days have AMV ones. Like the one of the biggest on the West Coast, Anime Expo has one every single year also. But
well,
the
the
Otakon,
one I was at wasn't
like
full, but it was almost full.
from what I can tell, Otakon has an interesting way of doing it because they have a syndicate, actual like panel area where you can sit down and watch it like on a TV instead of being in there live, which I thought was pretty interesting. Um, let's see.
Yeah, they air it multiple times so that everybody gets a chance to vote, and then at the end, I'm pretty sure I saw on the schedule that they had all the winners
Mhm.
be put up for like a half-hour panel, um, but I didn't attend that obviously.
What other things did you go to?
Um, the dealer room obviously, went to the rave. I met a lot of people there. Um, my girlfriend tried to go to the bookbinding panel, but they ran out of supplies, and she got there about 45 minutes early. Um, so it was pretty bad.
Ooh.
We didn't actually get to do anything till the middle of the day on Friday because registration was just such a pain. And
Explain to everyone how registration went, because from
yeah,
my
this is. I don't want to talk bad on it because Otakon is a really, really great anime con, but the truth is, this year registration was just pretty unbearable for some people. Um, I had a press pass. So for everybody that doesn't have a press pass, what that means is that I go into a room and basically there's four people there and there's no line, and I say I'm press. Here's my name. Here's the here's who I work for, and they write me one up right there. Like, and I'm out of there within 2 minutes. Um, Meanwhile, my girlfriend didn't have that, so I had to stand in line with her. And on Thursday, when we came in, I was expecting the line for pre registration to only be 45 minutes at the end of the night, like it was the year before. Um, and what we found was that by around 4 p.m., when we walked out of our hotel room after we registered at the Hilton, we found a 2 hour line. So, thinking that it was going to go like last year, where it would just die down eventually, we went to eat. We checked out the Mitsuri Festival, uh, and that was a lot of fun actually. And then we went to eat sushi at the Inner Harbor where the festival was, and and we got out of there about 8:30. Started walking back to the convention center, and it was 9, and they said we could get in line by 10. But when we were there at 9, it was clearly crazy. Like the line was kind of insane. There was definitely something wrong. And the end of the line person just like very rudely said the line is closed. Like, get out of here. Um, and we went back to our room, and after that, I just started reading all this stuff on Facebook. How everybody in line was basically trashing the whole con because they basically cut the line off at 11 or at 9, and then at 12 they just told everybody to go home unless they were inside the building, and if they were inside the building they gave them these green slips, um, and these green slips basically let you skip the line the next day, but at the same time they set up a second registration booth with only two people at the Hilton, and about 200 people found out about it and ran straight to the Hilton and like got in line. And I actually tried to, you know, I was on the fifth floor in the Hilton, and this was on the second floor. So me and my girlfriend literally just went down 3 floors and walked over to see if we can get in line. But obviously they wouldn't let us because we weren't already in line. So we just went back to our room. I snapped a few pictures, um, and that's about it. The next day, I knew that the line was going to be crazy because a lot of people who had come on Thursday specifically to pre-register, a lot of those people couldn't do anything. Like they were just like, what the hell? Like why did I pay for a hotel room for an extra night when I can't do anything? And a lot of them like went to bed and then woke up early or just stayed up all night and stood in the pre-reg line, and it basically created a situation where in the morning the line was automatically just like an hour long right away.
Jesus.
Wow. Yeah. And then it
That
just
sounds
was,
like an AX.
yeah, and then it was just a 2 hour line for about pretty much into the afternoon.
Wow.
In the afternoon, like late in the afternoon, maybe about 5 or 6, they posted like a tongue-in-cheek post on Facebook saying,
I saw that, yeah.
yeah, and right now it's deleted. I was trying to get a screenshot of it so I could post it, but
Really? Huh.
yeah, but like as soon as they posted that, everybody came rushing over, and it became an hour line again. Like, so, but whatever. After that, it was fine. After that, everybody could just walk straight up and register. But I mean, it just kind of annoys me because like it's a bunch of nerds, and we're talking about an internet connection. Like, why are they relying off of one internet connection for like the 42 booths or whatever that they had open? They could just as easily open like 4 or 5 in every hotel room around the con and not have this crazy line snaking around the convention center. Like they could just get a conference room in all of the various hotel rooms, and if one of them breaks because of the internet, you have the other 9 to rely on. So it's like that's just my idea for solving this problem.
No, it's definitely a valid one. This it's funny, the way that this is set up reminds me of mini cons over here in the West Coast. Anime a few years ago, they had a huge line that for some people lasted like around 5 hours, on like the first or like on the pre-reg day because the internet went out or the power went out, and like they were understaffed and they were doing pen and paper as far as like getting people registered at that time. But I definitely agree. Like I feel like with some conventions like these, if you're big enough, you have to have a plan B or plan C and D in case of plan A not going through.
Their main problem is that they want to hand every single member their pass directly hand to hand, because if they don't do that, if they start mailing them in, what people are going to basically do is just scalp the tickets. Like, you're just going to buy 10 at a time and then just sell them on eBay or whatever.
I heard that they're going to plan to do that for next year, though.
Well, that's one of the things they're saying. But that's clearly, I don't think they're going to go with it just because of that problem, because of the scalping of the tickets. And there are other ways that they can handle that volume of registration without just being stupid about it. Like, I just don't see any reason why they need to do one single line on one internet connection in one building, and they can very clearly set up multiple registration booths. That's what concerts do when they have, or even clubs, when they have a huge amount of people that they need to bring in for a night.
Mm-hmm.
They just have multiple places where you can get in. It makes it easier for everybody involved. If one goes down, you still have the other ones.
Right. But you got in. You managed to get into the con.
Yeah.
What
I got really lucky though. So.
What were some of the things you first went and check out after about however much time of walking around?
On Thursday, I was able to actually finish registering around 2. Like, me and my girlfriend were walking around 2 in the con. And we went straight to the dealer room for about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were done, we were just walking around, just taking pictures of cosplay. We didn't really have time to just we didn't know when we were going to be done registering, so we didn't plan our day. Like, we just started walking around and just wasted a ton of time just walking around because we just didn't have any plan on what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was our first time going, so she kind of looked at the schedule and didn't really know what to do. We didn't want to watch anime in one of the video rooms, so we just had a lot of fun checking out all the costumes, like just taking pictures, doing photography. My girlfriend was also dressed up as a Neko Mimi.
Oh, nice.
so that was fun, and I was just taking pictures of her too. But yeah, dealer room was fun. There was tons of stuff to see in there. I always spend at least 4 hours in there.
Right, right.
Yeah. I got a One Piece Jolly Roger flag.
Sweet.
Been wanting to get that for a while. Saw it, had to get it. I also wanted to get this T-shirt that was the One Piece Jolly Roger.
Mm-hmm.
It said, "I'm on a boat." But
Yes.
Nice.
but they ran out like out of mediums, and I didn't want to get a smaller or large. So
Yeah, I've heard that Otakon's dealer's room is pretty huge. I think it was last year I talked to Clint about it. He worked on the site, and it was like a pretty large, sizable dealer's room. And the only thing I can compare it to is the
yeah, the ceiling is about 100 feet like tall, so it's just like crazy amount of space in there. And when you walk in, you can only walk in from one side and exit from the other. Like they don't allow you to exit from the entrance.
right.
Unless there's like fire or something. But that obviously has never happened.
Not yet.
Yeah. But when you
Don't
walk
jinx
in,
it.
yeah, when you walk in, immediately is all the various studios that work on the animes. There's like Bandai and like Funimation and like all the companies that release anime and license it. Then like all the way to the left is a bunch of booths with people who are doing autographs, and there's only like 5 or 6 of those, and then the rest is just various small time like dealers like selling clothes, figurines, little knickknacks, like cosplays, rave clothes, like all kinds of stuff. You can definitely pretty much find anything in there. Old video games. I saw like very old, very rare consoles that they just brought to put on display. I don't think anybody ever buys them. But,
right.
um,
In terms of space, when you're walking around, was there enough space? I mean, like, I obviously, like, it's a day by day type of deal. But like,
Yeah.
for you, when you were there, when you went to the dealer's room for whatever day you went to, at times did it feel like it was a bit too crowded to where it was like almost like a standstill, or was it like enough space for you to walk around and have no issue at all at any given time?
There's almost always space to walk around, except when the dealer room is closing and everybody's leaving, like
Okay.
at the very, very exit. But it's not too bad. It takes maybe like 5 to 10 minutes to clear out, but that's the only time where it's too bad. When it's busy in the dealer room, there might be times where you're just like trying to get around, but there's somebody cosplaying right in front of you taking pictures, like because somebody stopped them.
Yeah.
Like, and that's pretty common. Otakon has a way higher ratio of cosplayers to regular clothed people than Comic-Con, based on what I've read. I've never been to Comic-Con, but
Right.
It's almost like a third of people are cosplaying. So there's constantly people taking pictures.
Cool.
Yeah.
What other did you manage to check out any other events or panels when you were there? Or did you or I cannot talk tonight. Or did you because I know you said you didn't exactly have a plan. You just kind of go with went with the flow of things there.
Yeah.
But did you check out any panels or any other events when you were there?
I think you're trying to say did he plan to do any panels, because we talked about I already asked him if he already had seen any panels, but I think the question is really, did he plan to go to any panels?
I wanted to check out the Japanese drinking culture, Sake 101, Japanese whiskey 101.
There was a Japanese sake whiskey 101 panel.
Yes. They were over 18 panels.
Damn.
There's a ton over 18 panels, but it just didn't work out. We either were hungry. This is the main problem with anime cons. Like, you wake up early, go out, you're able to like take pictures of a bunch of cosplay, check out the dealer room, and then all of a sudden it's 4 p.m. and you're just like, great, we need to get food. And then you leave for like an hour and a half, and then you come back and you're like, all right, there's a few night panels, but we can only make 1 or 2. We wanted to always go to the rave, so we were just like, all right, let's go shower, like get changed, blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
and then actually go. So that's why I didn't actually wind up going to any panels. But the other problem with panels is that they constantly require you to be there an hour and a half ahead of time. It's impossible to get in unless you budget out that time, and we did not want to stand in line.
Gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
because the choice was we either stand in line and get in a panel, or we basically actually do something during that time. So that's why we didn't go to any panels. That's a huge problem, I think, for Otakon, because at the beginning, maybe like when I went in college, the attendance was way lower, maybe by 10,000 people lower.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into a panel was maybe like you stand for half an hour to 45 minutes. It wasn't like too crazy unless it was a really popular panel. When I went to a One Piece panel at my first Otakon ever, I think it was '08. It was the voice actors for the dub.
Oh, cool.
They that was only like a 45-minute wait. It wasn't too bad at all. Like I had no problem doing it. But these days, like I said, my girlfriend went to a bookbinding 101, stood in line for 45 minutes, and they told her they ran out of supplies. Like it's a problem when there's so many more people that are competing for spots in the room. I was almost thinking at one point, wouldn't it be awesome if you could pre-register for a specific panel and only the people that registered for it could get in?
That'd
But
be interesting. I mean, that would. I mean, the thing is though with conventions is specifically like big ones. Like it's always going to be attended by a lot of people, and there's always going to be lines when it comes to panels or events. It is a trade-off of like, would you spend a half hour waiting in line for this panel, or would you use that time to go walk around, take pictures, or hang out with friends? That type of trade-off, depending on what the
yeah,
panel is. It at times when I go to cons over here, like it definitely that struggle is real. Like I plan everything out, but like some things I may not get to, and it's just a matter of just like, do I feel like I want to wait for this long to get in this panel? Like, is it worth it? So I definitely feel you.
honestly, the way I did it last year was I went to pre-register
Mm-hmm,
on a Thursday,
mm-hmm,
and I went straight back to my room and started planning everything out.
mm-hmm.
But this year, on my Thursday night, instead of doing that, I was actually staring at Facebook and watch Otacorp, the people that organize Otakon. I was watching them just basically getting eviscerated for the registration. And it was just kind of like watching a train wreck in slow
Entertainment.
motion.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
I
time.
knew, I knew as like a serious professional person that they can't do anything about it. They're fucked and they know it, and too bad. Like all the people that were standing in line, there's nothing they can do about it. Like literally, physically, oh well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was just like there's things that they could have done to make it better. Like those green slips that they gave out,
Mm-hmm.
they could have put numbers on them and actually gave them to every single person so that the next day when those people came, they're in the same order, for example.
Right.
Um, like stuff like that where it's just like they didn't think and they just said screw it. I can understand like when you're in the heat of the moment,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
almost like all right, you're seeing the time. It's like 10:30. Okay, it's 11. It's 11:30. Like
Mm-hmm.
instead of fixing a broken ship that's sinking already, you might as well just do something else. And that's just a generic opinion.
Right. No,
It's more adult. It's a more adult opinion than most people. When you look at most people that are commenting on Facebook or whatever, they're just like, "Give me back my money," blah blah blah.
There
But
was
honestly, personally, the raves themselves are huge EDM like concerts, like with DJs that are actually big in the local area that are already or doing shows. And if I paid $80 to get into Otakon, which I didn't, I was on a press pass, but if I did pay $80, that would be $40 per rave, which is different this year than it was last year. Like last year there was only one on a Saturday. This year there was one on Friday and Saturday. And $40 per rave on its own without the AnimeCon is already worth it because it's a huge thing. They give you free water, no alcohol, but who gives a fuck? Like it's fun. Like you can pregame if you really want to, you know.
Right.
So that by itself is enough value for me to go again. But at the same time, I can see how everybody that doesn't enjoy that, who maybe just wants to just cosplay, or maybe they wanted to see a panel that was specifically in the morning on Friday, I could see how those people are just pissed off because they might have had something that was their main thing that was made the whole con for them. It might have been on that Friday morning, and they might have gotten screwed out of it.
Mhm.
And that's the truth.
Mhm.
So a lot of these people really do have a case, in my opinion. Like Otakon should have done something for those people, but I can also see why they can't care that much. Like, how do they know if that one person cared so much more than everybody else?
Right. It's
They would have to do the same thing for everyone.
it's a very hard thing to balance out for sure. Brendan, were you gonna say something earlier?
Yeah. I was kind of waiting. Anime Expo has very, very similar things mirrored that I've started seeing from what I've been hearing from you. Registration lines getting longer, wait times getting longer. When it comes to the panels, their resolution was the premier passes for even for registration they get registered first. Now, is that something that you would personally pay extra for it in order to get in the front of the line for panels and the front of the line for registration? Would you pay the extra $200 that they want for that?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay 200. That's double. That's more than double the price of the main ticket. I also don't feel like that's right in general. Like,
And that also includes all the access to all the main events that they charge for.
yeah, I understand that, but I don't see how logistically they could do it correctly without just. I don't see how they could do it at the Baltimore Convention Center because they would have to create two separate lines for everyone and have internal seating for two completely different sets of guests.
Well, no, not necessarily. The premier fans usually get in first, and then everyone else behind them. And if they have room for the person who's been paid, that's fine. But if there's one out seats, you're shit out of luck. That's how they do it at Anime Expo. I don't agree with it. I don't like the
Yeah,
fact that
and I would tend
them
to
paid.
agree too, because for some panels, for like the most popular ones, the premium members would just completely outclass the regular members, like
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Otacorp is not for profit. Like most of the people that are
Same as AX. Same AX is non-profit too, but yet they act like a for profit.
Yeah.
yeah, but Otakon, if you actually do the math on how much every member would raise, how much money every member that attends Otakon would raise,
Mhm.
it's only about 2.2 million ish, and that's not a lot of money. The amount of money that gets spent at Otakon, that gets spent on food, that gets spent at the hotels, that just in general the whole economy
Mhm.
is probably 50 million plus, like if not more. I don't know exactly, but I'm just guessing.
I wouldn't
Uh,
doubt it. Yeah.
yeah, and we're talking about the nonprofit that runs it, renting out the whole convention center
Mhm.
for that amount of money, and then still paying for all the supplies, for everything that they need to do at the con to make it a success. Um, I'm sure that's a lot of money that they're spending, way
They
more than that.
may break even every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they do,
Yeah.
but I'm still looking at it, and I'm thinking, okay, they're pinching pennies in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Um, that's not their fault, but it's just the reality of running these conventions.
It really is. It really is. I think that when running a convention, you are hard pressed to kind of choose, the money you earn or the money that you're using to kind of where exactly would you put it, and then making that money back, to pay those fees, to pay those things that you have rented for that weekend. And the Baltimore Convention Center is no joke as far as like just renting the entire convention for Otakon.
The crazy part is they rent rooms in the Hilton next door too,
Hmm.
and it's a whole extension of the con. Like we're talking like multiple conference rooms, uh, maybe like 10 conference rooms in the Hilton
Mm-hmm.
that are running like 10 panels simultaneously at the same time as the whole con is also full. Like there's no empty space whatsoever. Uh, it's interesting though. The video game room, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I did go there, and it's way more spread out than the dealer room. Like there's spaces in the video game room where you can literally just play football.
Wow.
And
That huge?
like, yeah, it's a huge room. It's as big as the dealer room, I would say, but they just don't occupy the whole space.
That sounds like Anime Expo, entertainment room, gaming room. They had a lot of space to the point where a lot of people were sitting around doing just laying around, just hanging out,
What would be really
walking
cool
space.
what would be really cool is if they took like that section of it and made like a real LAN center, like Quake style, where you actually bring your computer,
Mm-hmm.
because a bunch of people would do that and they would pay for a spot there,
Yeah.
because you
That's
need
pretty cool.
security to make sure that no one gets away with your computer, blah blah blah. But it would make the game room filled up, and it would be really fun, like just being able to just LAN against other otakus.
Right, right. No, that'd be really cool. Yeah, like I've seen pictures before of how big the game room is in Otakon, and goddamn that room is huge.
Yeah.
Man, it's pretty
It's
impressive.
actually next to the anime music video room,
Oh, huh.
and they're both like very similar. They're exactly at 90-degree angles from each other.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. What
So that room actually, it always is a mess because they do the line for the AMV contest
Mhm.
at the same time as people are walking in and out of the game room, at the same time
Uh,
as people are cosplaying in that room because it's a cool room. Like there's a fountain, and there's like stairs, and there's plants in there, and it's still a big floor space.
right.
So half the time there's an active like series cosplay, like on some series. Um, at one point there was Borderlands,
Awesome.
so I was just like taking pictures of Borderlands, and an AMV line was forming to the left of me, and it was just like chaos for a little bit. But uh, it's constant, just commotion and fun. You can't really complain when you're there,
That's
unless
true.
you're a gopher
That's
actually running the line.
That's true. In terms of the game room, like, I can imagine with that space, like they have had room for tons of like different type of games, to be played
Oh
there.
yeah, there was a lot of obscure stuff. It's mostly things that you can play against somebody else immediately. So fighters,
Mm-hmm.
Super Smash was huge. Uh, Super Street Fighter, all that kind of stuff. I'm not into those games. I personally play first-person shooters on the PC, or right now I'm playing Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really play that kind of game in that kind of setting. There was a lot of DDR, a lot of Rock Band, just anything. Basically, your typical living room party game
Mm-hmm.
is what most people were playing, because that's the most fun when you're actually sitting next to somebody and you can just like go in your face.
Right, right. Any weird like kind of game that they brought in that you like looked at first, like what the hell is this game? That's kind of popped out to you.
uh, there was some of that kind of stuff, but I couldn't actually. I didn't even bother asking what it was because I was only in there for about maybe a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Saturday already. Um, I left on Sunday immediately because my girlfriend lives in New York City, so it's a 4-hour trip.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So on Saturday I got in there for about a half an hour. We just checked it out. That day we also checked out the Artist Alley,
Oh,
which is
cool.
basically dealer room light. It's dealer room for people who don't want to spend the money on a full stand or don't have enough product.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, you can think of it as almost Etsy in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to Amazon. Um, it's mostly stuff that people make themselves.
Oh yeah,
Uh, for the
definitely.
most part, it's 2D art
Mm-hmm.
that people are selling. But there's a lot of knickknacks, furries, like little fluffy things. There was one stand that was selling spirit hoods.
Oh, nice.
For those that don't know, a spirit hood is a hood with fur on it that looks like a cat or a dog or some other furry animal, and it's really popular with girls, especially in the winter because it keeps you nice and warm. Um, and yeah, they were selling those
Cool.
that are handmade.
Yeah, definitely. The artist alley, like it is recently becoming my favorite place to go to buy stuff. Like I'll admit, like when I go to dealers hall nowadays with at conventions, the one thing I'll get now is just like figurines because it's my weakness. But when it comes to everything else, like I want to buy, like I go to the artist alley. And there's a lot of cool shit in there. It's kind of where I've been going to as of late. But yeah, it's really awesome. In terms of the size of the room for artist alley, like how is it just as big as the dealers hall and other rooms, or how would you say size wise it was?
I would say I would say it's between a half to three-fourths the size of the dealer room.
That's still pretty good. That's still pretty
Yeah,
huge.
it's huge. They had plenty of room. There was never really issues with any of that.
Cool.
They basically divide it into kind of the table area where people are just selling by themselves,
Hmm.
and then separately there's walls of art that you can walk through to look at, and some I didn't walk through it, but I think it was for sale,
Hmm.
and there's a big sign that says no photography. So that's basically where I feel like the person isn't actually there by themselves to sell it or anything or promote that art at all. They're just part of the whole collection. And then separately, there was an area where you just walk around and it's tables and you can look at stuff and talk to the actual person that's selling it, and it's kind of cool. I know
Artist
that
alley kind of
I know
setup.
that one of the guys that I met there, it's the guy that I played Final Fantasy 14 with, and he actually lives in Baltimore, 15 minutes from the convention center, and he bought some stuff there, some a few pieces of art.
Cool. That's pretty awesome. Uh,
Yep.
so tell me, because you were talking about earlier, I wanted to touch on like how tell me about the rave. How how was it? Like how was the music and did you have fun? Is overall.
Oh, I totally had fun. I was there with my girlfriend. Like, we enjoy electronic dance music. We enjoy trance, a little bit of dubstep, that kind of thing. Um, like I said before, the DJs that play there are relatively the better DJs of the Northeast in the United States. There's no like huge names like Tiesto or anything like that, but the guys that are there play good music, and it was really good. They usually pull out all the stops for Otakon because Otakon happens to be some of their best crowd that they play in front of. It's a huge amount of people. Everybody's like totally hyped up because they've been at the con all day walking around, and it for a lot of people at the con, it's the first experience like that. Like they've never been to a rave before, so it's like this little adrenaline rush when you've never been to one and you go to one for the first time. Um, it's also very interesting compared to normal raves because people are in cosplay half the time, so it is possible to see Princess Peach dancing with Darth Vader. Like it happens.
Yeah.
That's one thing at an Otakon rave that happens, and it's a ton of fun. They're very strict. Well, first of all, getting in on Friday, it's way easier to get in. On Friday, I just walked in at around 10 p.m. Um, this was the first year where there was a Friday rave, so a lot of people probably don't even know it was going on. So there was a smaller crowd than on Saturday. But once you're in, it's a really big room, uh, maybe about a third the size of the dealer room.
Hmm.
But it's set up as there's a stage and it's set up like a concert. There's security in the front and they're very, very strict. Like you can't even be within a foot of the gate in front. Like there's no one standing there, but they like flash their light at you and tell you to get off of it. Um, there's obviously no alcohol there, so they also provide free water, which is weird relatively. There are a few raves that do that, but generally, if you go to a rave at a club, they won't give you free water, though they're going to try to sell it to you. Um, and the way they do it is there's just regular office coolers. Like there's maybe like 6 of them spread out around the perimeter of the room.
Right.
And when you go there, you just grab a cup and there's a giant trash can right there. And they probably have to replace that trash can like 5 or 6 times because it just gets full. Like there's people wanting water constantly. Like you just sweat a lot while you're dancing, and that's one of the cool things about it. It's one of those raves where you don't have to think about it. You can just go and enjoy yourself and not worry about being hydrated or whatever, or bringing water or having money to even buy water. You just go, have fun, and leave. Um, the only problem is they ended at 2, and I was still there at 2 and being like, damn, I would keep going. It's it's kind of good on one hand because it forces you to just go to bed because you're gonna need to be up the next day for the rest of the con.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, you're just like, WTF? I want to keep going.
Right. Yeah, I definitely get you. It's every convention has their own type of thing when it comes to raves or dances, quote unquote. They have.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sounds like you totally had a good time there. It's funny you mention it because over here at the West Coast, and I keep doing this comparison. Fanime over here in San Jose, they have raves. Like it's like a 4-day con. And they have it Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. But their raves don't end till around 3 or 4. I know 3 for sure, but I think 4. I think is the latest they go. So like I can understand like how some people will still want to keep going.
A lot of this is about the city and the local government where they're doing it.
Mhm.
Baltimore is relatively liberal, but in the end, they're just like, okay, these are a bunch of kids, and we want them to just like not go crazy. So,
Right.
like, as soon as we left, there were just cops standing outside the convention because there's no one there after the rave ends. Like, the rave is the last thing that is going on, and it's like deserted when you're walking out, and it's just a crowd of ravers walking out. So there's maybe like 5 or 6 cops there just to make sure that no one's drunk or on ecstasy or whatever.
Right.
And it's not that big of a deal, but it's just kind of crazy, like how much local municipality influence and laws there are. For example, this year was the first year where there was a curfew for those under 18 in Baltimore. And they actually made a big announcement about it because a lot of the people that go, obviously, are not 18.
Right.
So a lot of people were like freaking out that, they were going to get in trouble because a lot of teenagers went by themselves or like with a friend or, that kind of thing. But there was basically that law was designed for people that actually live in Baltimore. So the cops didn't really bother anyone as far as I know at the convention center. It's basically in the center of Baltimore, in the center city of Baltimore. So it's all like skyscrapers and stuff. As long as you're not being an idiot, no one's gonna really bother you. But really, it was crazy. The amount of things that are going around the city as you're in the middle of the convention. On Thursday, it was a football game, literally a block away from the convention center.
Oh, nice.
It was a Ravens game. The stadium is both a baseball stadium and a football stadium, as far as I understand, and it's located next to the Hilton.
Oh,
and
no way.
Yeah, and it's diagonal from the convention center. So there's just huge crowds in the middle of registration that are walking through the registration lines, going to the Ravens game.
That's awesome. Wow.
And then the next day it was an Orioles game on Friday, and on Saturday there was another Orioles game. So there were 3 major sporting events that happened within a block of Otakon, and Baltimore, the city itself, handles it perfectly fine. There's traffic, obviously. It's jam packed on
Mm-hmm.
Pratt Street, which is the street right in front of the convention, like all day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look at a map and you really look at traffic, like that's the only place in the whole city that really is bad, like bad, like because of major events.
Right.
The rest of the city is relatively unaffected, so I'm sure there are locals that resent having Otakon there, but
Mm-hmm.
the city wants them there because of the money it brings.
Oh, for
So
sure, definitely.
yeah,
I've s-
but it's just weird because you're just like you're walking around the Inner Harbor, which is the main tourist area in Baltimore. The Inner Harbor is just like a really nice old harbor it's not industrial anymore. It's just basically like old battleships, and there's a submarine there from World War II. Um, and there's just like cosplayers walking around all of this stuff, taking pictures, especially with the one World War II sub. That's
mhm.
a really popular thing for cosplayers because it's a legit World War II submarine that sunk Japanese ships in the war.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So if you're dressed as like a soldier or whatever, it's awesome. Like just stand there and take some pictures. Uh,
Wow. That's pretty sick.
there's also an actual battleship there. Um, there's there's one from the War of 1812. I think it's from the War of 1812. It's it's not metal, it's wood. So I'm
Ah,
pretty sure.
okay.
Uh, and like even if your cosplay is from that time period, you've got something there to
Oh yeah,
stand.
definitely. That's really cool. That's really awesome. Yeah, when it comes to cosplays, like you definitely having the right background of
Yeah,
how being photoshopped is always
I would
great.
say that Baltimore has one of the best locations for that because it's not just a convention center in the middle of nowhere or off to the side. It's literally in the center of the city, in the historical center of the city. Like that's where
Nice.
the war was in the War of 1812. There's a whole like battlefield park where the fort was
Uh-huh.
that still is there. It's
Nice.
maybe 4 or 5 blocks from the convention center, and it's just like a giant hill. You can kind of see it off in the distance with like cannons and stuff still there. It's part of the park, and I just cannot imagine a better location. And that's actually something that kind of annoys me about the move in 2017 to Washington D.C. Um, I don't know if you guys know, but Otakon is moving in 2017 to the convention center in D.C.
Right. I caught word of that a while back, and I remember I was going to ask you about it about the like aren't they going to move like to the convention to the new convention center in Washington D.C. pretty soon? Yeah, it's crazy. Like my guess, or as far as I know, is like the reason for the move is like they've outgrew the Baltimore Convention Center. Is if that's supposed to be correct?
Yeah, they basically said that the Baltimore Convention Center is getting old,
Mm-hmm.
and the city is actually planning or in talks of maybe completely reconstructing it, like raising it,
Gotcha.
completely doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they wanted to stay in Baltimore, and Baltimore made the case for it,
Mm-hmm.
but they obviously went with DC, and this gives Baltimore the opportunity to upgrade the convention center because the Otakon staff definitely wants to stay in Baltimore. They just literally can't. Like it's just getting really bad, and I can definitely see why.
Interesting. Interesting.
Although other conventions are currently having the same problem too. Anime LA has to move next the year after next.
Mhm.
Anime Expo's having crowding problems with their convention center. San Diego Comic Con is having trouble. E3's having trouble. So there's a lot of conventions that needs actual revamp and upgrading.
Mhm.
In San Diego, speaking of it, is that they are actually having some trouble with the old plan. It was announced that they are now going to be making a new Charger Stadium with right next to the convention center. It's going to be part of it.
Hmm. Interesting.
So
Yeah, and you know what? I blame the internet. The reason I
Huh.
blame the internet
Huh.
is because now all this nerdy stuff is becoming mainstream and everybody wants to go. There are people that are attending Otakon that I never ever thought would ever want to be associated with anime or with nerdy stuff just because it wasn't cool. And now it's cool, and it's BS for those of us that have been into it all along because it means that sometimes we can't go to stuff that we want to go to because of overcrowding. But this is a new phenomenon. We're talking about increases in attendance for all the convention centers or all the conventions for all pop culture, and we just don't have the infrastructure in place. That's what they're discovering.
Yep. I mean, it's funny because it's like I don't want to make it sound like hipster talk, but like we were there first, man. We were there in the front lines before anybody else. That was cool. But no, you're totally right. Like it's definitely the attendance for every major convention has grown every year to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's getting to the point where like at this point, like bigger venues do work, but eventually you're gonna run into the same problem year after year. So there's got to be some system that has to be set up in order to either cap it at what they feel happy about, or find some way where they can make it easy for people to come in, come out of the convention. It is definitely a struggle that many convention goers.
I kind of noticed that if the trend stays the way, I just hope it doesn't become like the Japanese conventions, like some of the big conventions where you have like 500,000 people. That is just too insane, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be pretty insane.
There's a lot of people that just wouldn't go if it was like that, and part of it is just like, okay, the bigger the convention gets, the worse it is to get into panels. So a lot of the value of the con goes away. A lot of those people just stop going to the big cons. They just keep going to the little ones. If all you're doing is cosplaying, and it's costing you, maybe like $1,000 to go to Otakon because you have to fly and all this other stuff, get hotels, food, whatever, and you're standing in line for half the day on a Friday, a lot of those people are just going to say, screw it, I'm not going to go to the big ones, I'm just going to go to the little ones, and where there's only maybe like 500 people attending, or maybe like a few thousand max.
Yeah, I've seen that trend already. I myself is one of those trendos. Is I actually have stopped going to anime expo except for just this previous year, and to go to smaller cons like MALA, Fanime Con, and stuff like that, because I don't have to deal with the overcrowding. I don't have to deal with the bull crap and politics that goes on in some of these bigger conventions.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've been seriously considering Anime Next in North Jersey. I would say it's about a 45-minute drive from New York City, and it's maybe a 13,000 attendance ratio. But here's the other caveat: I haven't been there yet, so I kind of just want to check it out. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. I don't know. But it's not 37,000 people.
Right, for sure.
When Anime Expo was 35,000 people, it wasn't that bad. It really depends on the venue and the organization of the actual people running it. But there's a time comes where the organization gets overwhelmed and or the convention center itself just can't handle it, and that is not necessarily the fault of the people running it. There are some years that is tweaked and it actually runs smoothly. Maybe next year it will actually run smoothly with 35,000 people because
here's the thing about that.
Mix.
Last year, the crowding was way worse because they weren't expecting that. I feel like this is part of the reason that registration was so bad this year, or pre-registration was so bad. In the year before, you could just go on the Friday or the Saturday and just get your ticket right there. But this year they capped attendance, so there was always that constant threat that maybe you weren't going to be able to do that. You weren't just going to be able to buy it right then and there, that you would be locked out because they reached the cap. So almost everyone pre-registered this year. Like the majority of people pre-registered, where in the previous years the majority of people would not pre-register. So it created this way crazier pre-registration line than usual. But on the flip side, once people were inside, the organization for that 37,000 people was way better because they knew what the full attendance is going to be once inside. So it was kind of like this give and take this year where pre-registration was a mess because it had way more people, but just organization of the internal lines once everybody was inside was a little better. I don't know what the reason is, but it just seemed that way to me.
Okay, that's cool. Good to hear. The question I wanted to bring up, because we were on the topic of the area in Baltimore, how are, I mean, they're gonna move to Washington D.C. It'll be interesting to see your take on it if you want to come back for next year.
Yeah.
Is the food around the convention center, like, is in downtown Baltimore, so I can assume that you don't have to travel too far to get some food.
No, it's actually all walking distance. There's minor stuff across the street.
Mm-hmm.
There's hoagie places, a Subway, various restaurants within a block or two, and then that explodes when you allow people to walk a whole mile or so away from the con. So right in the inner harbor that I was talking about, where they had the festival and where a lot of the cosplayers go, right in there's a ton of fast food and sit down, just food places. There's, I would say, sushi and just Japanese in general. There's probably 15 restaurants just within walking distance of the convention center.
Wow.
Because you got to remember, this is a very touristy area in the first place, even without the convention. Like, these are where all the games are, all the baseball games and football games. So when people come and go, they spend money.
Mm-hmm.
The Baltimore Aquarium is there. And the Baltimore Aquarium's not its actual name. It's actually called the National Aquarium. And it's like the whole U.S. government gives it money. And it's a huge aquarium. Like, I went there when I was a kid. And it took us maybe 2 hours to walk through the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, there's this one room where you're just walking down in a spiral, and around you there's just sharks like swimming around you. It's crazy. And that alone as an attraction just attracts people to that area of the city. We went to a Japanese sushi restaurant sit-down place.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the second floor in kind of like a little mall type building. It has an inside, but it's only maybe like 12 or 13 retail locations. Like kind of like retail shops, like little convenience stores. There was like a cigar store in there. There's a Five Guys fast food place.
Nice.
And just kind of, there's an Irish pub and some other kind of sit-down restaurants, and they all have an outdoor seating area that has a just kind of balcony where you see the inner harbor. So we ate sushi there on Thursday night instead of standing in line, and that was fun. And I was just lazy. I pretty much got Subway the rest of the time. We did on Saturday night go and get ramen at 1010 Ramen. It's a Google Maps said it was 0.6 miles away from the convention center. So it took us about 15 minutes of walking to get there. But it was a half an hour from our hotel.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
25 minutes-ish. And we just had fun walking there. It was no big deal. The only thing is when you're walking up into the city from the inner harbor, you're literally walking up. It's uphill the whole way.
I see. Gotcha.
And the way back is way easier. You're just walking down the hill the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not extremely steep. It's not like San Francisco, but it's still pretty annoying.
Right. I hear you.
Especially when you're already tired of walking.
If one thing's for sure, like, you're getting a good workout, your lower body is getting some good leg muscle action going there. That's cool though. That's pretty awesome.
And this place was really great. they had a ton of people. It was just like packed. Like, think about it. It's a ramen place. It's an anime con.
Oh
It's less
yeah,
than a
no doubt.
uh, where I was. Luckily, we went like early, like maybe like 5:30 before like real dinner rush starts, and there was still a line when we got there, but it wasn't too bad. But I saw some people waiting for like a half an hour just to get their food after they already paid, after they already stood in line for 15 minutes. Uh, and they weren't even bringing everything out at the same time. You would get your soup, and then you were waiting for your gyoza, like gyoza's little dumplings, for those that don't know. Um, I was waiting for them for like an extra 15 minutes on top, so it was just like, what the hell? That was the appetizer.
Wow.
But that's the only real Japanese authentic food that I ate there. But there's a ton of food places there, and even inside the convention center, there's just like your typical kind of French fries, burgers, hot dogs. Most of it isn't really that good, and it's overpriced. But if you just want a quick bite and you don't feel like actually going anywhere, you can get stuff in the convention center itself. The main floor of the convention center has a little bit nicer kind of. You can't really say stores; they're more like stands, but they're a little nicer. Like you can get some pretty nice coffee and just good drinks. It's not nothing's made for you right there, but it's better than the crappy stuff they have down in the dealer room.
Right, no, I definitely get you. Normally, like, convention food is not the best. It's overpriced, but if you do want something that's, quick bite or nothing too bad, definitely, yeah, it's definitely something to take into
Yeah,
consideration.
and there's also like 5 or 6 subways in the center city area within like a mile of each other,
Mm-hmm.
but there's one directly in front of the convention center, and that one is packed. The line goes out the door. And I highly recommend that people just walk a little bit away and get their Subway sandwich with no line, literally like a few blocks away. Like, not that bad, guys. Just Google it.
Right, right.
There's even one Subway that's 24/7 within a mile. So if you're in the middle of the night working on your cosplay and you're hungry, there you go.
Right, definitely, definitely. Now, every convention, lots of people come, enjoy themselves. We're all a bunch of nerds in costumes or just kind of playing games or whatnot. Now, for you, when you went to this year's Otakon, was there ever a moment where you're walking in a convention center and like this most random this event happened in front of you, or something that you see, uh, you know, that's like very funny to you, but like obviously nobody else, but like things that happen at conventions, obviously. But has that happened to you this past weekend?
There's constantly like um, random meetings of similar characters from the same series,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't seen each other at the con yet, and they're just like, "Oh, hey, blah blah blah, whatever character it is." So like, it'll be like, Luffy or Zoro or whatever One Piece characters or whatever Naruto characters or whatever it is, and it's just funny to me when I see it. I was walking around with a Luffy hat. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't look like Luffy, but I just had the hat, the
Mm-hmm.
straw hat,
Right.
and I would every once in a while a One Piece character would just be like, "Hey Luffy," and I'm not really expecting it because I'm not really cosplaying. I'm
Right.
just kind of repping uh, One Piece as like that's something I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at least people know, oh hey, he's into it. Because I feel like when you're cosplaying, you're kind of telling the world, hey, I'm into this. Talk to me about it. Or
Right.
like at least like let's have fun on that topic. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're cosplaying because you're talking to somebody else or you're cosplaying with them, doing live action, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting to see like an ace death scene. Spoiler alert. with with all the characters there, and they're all acting sad, and then like 2 seconds later, they're all just cracking up at some like weird thing that somebody else did. Um, Tons of fun for sure. The cosplay I feel like is the best fun because it's so natural and so like out of pure fun.
Mm-hmm.
You're not standing in line. You're not worrying about some problem or some technical malfunction or whatever. You're just straight up having real fun, just like kids all over the world do when they're actually like playing. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, and that's part of the fun of being at a con. Like I'm already 27, but when I'm at a con, I feel like a little kid sometimes,
Oh
and
yeah.
I feel like that's awesome.
No matter what age you are when you go to convention, like your inner child comes out one way or another.
You
Exactly.
become a teenager again.
Go through puberty again.
Hey, I've been watching One Piece since episode 73. So when I'm watching One Piece, I'm like back there.
Nice.
Sometimes. It's just like it the crazy part is, and this is what a lot of people that are not into anime they don't understand is that when you're watching something weekly since you were a kid, that's why you're into it. It's not like you got into it when you're already in your 20s.
Hmm.
But once you start, like you don't want to really stop. You don't want to like end the story there. It's still going. You want to see what happens.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
And especially the manga alone, that some of these series that was been going for so long that even they don't have anime out for until recently anyway. Like Hunter x Hunter. Recently that they restarted the anime, but it stopped back in the 1990s. And it's like, now all this time you actually read the manga to keep up to date on it. It's that kind
Yeah,
of same philosophy.
for sure. And it's funny, like I just I see a lot of that at the cons where somebody will be cosplaying something completely weird and random from like the 80s and no one knows what they're cosplaying as, but every once in a while they'll be like, hey dude, like, and you just get this instant understanding of just like, hey man, I've been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's crazy was okay, so it was this past was it at Fanime this past year I went um on pre-reg day I dressed up as Lupin from his new series like a year or two ago. And I wasn't expecting anybody to really recognize him because like Lupin's a character where he's very easy to cosplay as. He's popular sometimes, in any given day. But like yeah, like I'm not expect because like obviously this year with like Kill la Kill, Attack on Titan, like those type of anime, they're really popular this year. So I was walking around and I got people actually recognizing me more than I originally intended to happen. So it's like, yeah, like those things does happen. Like it was funny. This one guy I ran into, he was an older guy, but he saw my cosplay, and it's like, dude, you are repping that so good. Like, let me take a picture, man. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So it's a really gratifying feeling, but it's also like of all ages, like there's people there who are as old as let's see, I don't know, 70, 80, or as young as like 3 or 4, and like you have that kind of vast knowledge of like of what animes you have seen over the years. So there's always gonna be some recognition one way or another.
Yeah.
It's a cool feeling.
And on the flip side, it's always the best when you see like a little kid get into something that you've been
Ah,
into for like
yes.
years,
Oh man, it's the
and they're
best.
just making their day. Like you look like whatever their character is. Like you could be Batman, and like you could just like have a little fun with the kid, and the kid will be like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
Batman's my friend!" So like,
Yeah.
and they're so into it, and the excitement is totally contagious. I love it,
Yes.
and
It's
that is
yeah.
why all I do at conventions is walk around and take photography of cosplay.
It's awesome. Um, speaking of cosplays, um, now you went and had some photos as you guys can check out the site. But like out of the cosplays you've seen or that you photographed, like which one in particular that kind of stood out to you when you were there over the weekend?
There was a really good jewelry Bonnie during the 11 a.m. One Piece shoot on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I asked her to take some pictures separately from the group. And it was she looked like her, like pretty authentic. Um, she was even eating, like Julie Bonnie actually eats in One Piece, like constantly.
Nice.
She told me that she was gonna get a pizza, but couldn't for whatever logistical reason.
Mm-hmm.
so she was eating an apple, but it was still good for the shoot. There was a really, really good Kill a Kill, um, and the Borderlands guys were just ridiculous. Like they looked like they were like they had contacts for the right eye color.
Mm-hmm.
They're just everything was very, very good. I Oh, and there was a really good Kakashi uh, right before the One Piece 11 a.m. shoot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so good, and I was just trying to get there because I was a little late.
Right, right.
It's late,
Mm-hmm.
and as I'm running there, there's just this, the Kakashi with his book walking, and he looks exactly like him, and I'm just like, okay, stop. Ran back. It was just like, dude, can I get a picture? You know, he was very gracious. The lighting was awesome because it was 11 a.m. The light was so perfect.
Nice.
So I absolutely love it when the lighting is good for the photography.
Oh yeah, definitely. Out of the photos I've seen so far, out of the gallery you took, man, that the Kill la Kill one that you took a Ryoko in her outfit, and it was like the bladed version. Oh,
Yeah.
that was really sick. I was like, oh, that's awesome. How
Yeah,
how
and
how did you do it?
I saw that girl maybe like 10 times during the whole con, and she constantly had like basically like 3 or 4 people photographing her like at any given time. Her boyfriend was standing there like just like bored out of his mind.
Wow.
And on Saturday he was Spider-Man, and he was just like standing behind her like completely like out of place because it's a completely different thing,
Right, right.
and just looking like, why isn't anyone paying attention to me? Like,
I know that feeling. Like I know that feeling where nobody recognizes you sometimes. I will say like I mean okay. I mean as a cosplayer, like I am a little vain when it comes to cosplays and people recognizing me. Um, I don't think I've told anybody this, and this is the first time you guys hearing this on the podcast for those listening. So this past year at Fanime, I was dressed up as Zangetsu, like the actual uniform, and I was like so proud of it. It's like, oh, I made this. I'm wearing it. It's awesome. Like, I had to take care of some in the morning, but then like, because usually when I go to conventions, like take videos and pictures for the site, but like for the like from 10 to 11, like all I did just walk around, just around the convention so people can look at me and recognize me. Just be like, hey, check my costume out, and just like hoping somebody like takes a picture of me, and they did. They had plenty, but just like whenever Ryoko passed by me, it was just like, ah, yeah, it's awesome. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I definitely, it's really cool. It's really awesome.
yeah. And on that note, it's just kind of funny to me how like a lot of people do really, really good cosplays and they want the attention,
Uh-huh.
but then as soon as they need to actually get somewhere, they're just like running off and
Yeah.
everybody's bothering them and they just get pissed off.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of funny seeing it because like you can kind of see it in their face. They're like half happy that they're getting this attention, but at the same time they're just like, go away.
I need to use the bathroom, damn it, jeez.
Exactly.
But yeah. Overall, your thoughts on this year's Otakon, and what was your takeaway from this year's?
This year, it's very clear that they need to deal with the registration and figure it out and make sure that people that are actually registering and there on Thursday can go to everything on Friday at the very, very early morning. That is just something that they just owe the community that. They have to figure that out. But other than that, it's a lot of fun regardless, even if you spent all Friday outside the con being bored. Late Friday you could have registered fine, and the rest of the con is totally good. It just really depends on what your situation is. If you're there the whole time, then you can absorb that registration time. If not, then you're out of luck.
Mhm.
But I'm definitely going back next year, regardless. And actually next year, a ton of people that saw my pictures on Facebook, they're telling me, "Hey, I want to go next year. How do I make it happen?" And it seems like the attendance is just going to keep going up and up. It seems like they're going to lose a lot of the hardcore con cosplayers that go to maybe like 6 or 7 cons a year.
Mhm.
Those kind of people like if you're going to 6 or 7 cons a year and one of them pisses you off, it's a higher chance that you're just going to be like say screw it next year and just go to something else. But for those of us that go to only Otakon every year or 1 or 2 cons every year, it's still the most amount of fun that you can have at an anime con, like on the East Coast. We just have a much smaller amount of attendance than the West Coast does, and there's fewer huge cons. The reason everybody wants to go to Otakon is because it's so big. It's because you can go to a small photo shoot of maybe like, and by small I mean 50 people, and get together for one series, and you're still going to have 50 people. Whereas if you do the same thing at a local anime con, which with only a few thousand people, most of the people there are going to be doing the popular animes, and if you're doing something obscure or old, it's very likely that you won't find anyone there with the same stuff, so you can't do any live action stuff, you can't even play around with other people that are other characters in the series that you're cosplaying. So that's what Otakon is best at, cosplay. You don't have to have a ticket, just dress up and stand outside. There's plenty of people with actual passes that just stand outside and cosplay all day for photography anyway.
Nice.
So if your main reason for going is to cosplay, you might as well not even stand in the registration line and just stay outside. And then when it's a non-line, just get your pass.
Awesome. Well, Henry, I'd like to thank you for joining me tonight, as well as Brendan as well.
Sure, I enjoyed it.
Before we go, Brendan, where can they find you on the internet?
They can find me on Twitter, the handle of NightAR, and also on DeviantArt, the same name.
Cool. Henry, where can they find you on the internet?
I have akuj.in. My usual screen name is Akujin, which is evil god. And I actually have the domain name akuj.in. And you can find all my contact information on there, my resume, and all my photography and my web design stuff.
How do you spell that, just for people listening at home?
It's akuj.in.
Okay. Cool.
So it's Akujin with a period.
Oh, awesome. Cool. And you can personally follow me on Twitter at Defective Naruto. You can follow the work that me and Brendan do on our website at missionstartpodcast.com. You can listen to this podcast on the site. You can listen to it on Stitcher and iTunes. And you can follow the work that we do on the website. We have stuff coming up, as always. Be on the lookout for more future con stuff. The next convention that I will be attending to will be YaoiCon, which will be my first time going, and I'm not sure what to expect from it, other than that it's going to be lots and lots of man-on-man action. So yeah, I'm gonna brace myself for that. But anyways, thank you guys again, and with that, we see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Anthony Be Honest from the Mission Start Podcast, and if you enjoy listening to this podcast, as well as our other ones on our website, you can now hear us on Stitcher. You can now hear our show as well on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio, on-demand news, talk, and more on your mobile phone. The latest episodes always available for you, no syncing needed, and no money or storage wasted. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android phones, and beyond. Downloading is easy. Go to Stitcher.com or check out your app store. Stitcher, Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.